Thank you for joining us. My name is Ian Blackburn, and this is Zoom into Wine. Every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we get together some great people to talk about the world of wine, what's happening. We send out some really fantastic samples. Everyone's able to taste the wines with us if you're live. Otherwise, you can watch this recording in our archive on our website, zoomintowine.com, found at merchantofwine.com. Hope everyone's doing well. It's been a busy, busy day and a busy month. Lots going on in the world. And I'm excited to have you all here with me to drink some of my favorite California wine, Zinfandel. In fact, I've been an advocate for Zinfandel for a very long time. It is one of the reasons why I became a wine fan. I drank some Zinfandel in the early 1990s, and I became a huge follower. I used to go up to San Francisco every year for Zap and get obliterated, tasting 200 different Zinfandels, and then crawling to the best restaurant that would let me in through the front door. It was a good track. It was a good track. But tonight we're going to taste six and a half, almost seven Zinfandels. Um, and I'm excited to do that with you. So let's get started, and we'll chat with you after we get a little bit of wine going on here. Let me see if I can get my PowerPoint to cooperate. Here we go. That didn't work. All right. It's one of those days. Maybe technology and I aren't getting along. Let's see. Can't get YouTube to work. And now we got this. Okay. So Zinfandel, it's a grape variety. Whether it was brought here or found, somewhere in California, there's some arguments made. There's some really interesting genetic stuff that places it in as Primitivo in the southern part of Italy, or maybe it's from Croatia. Doesn't matter. What happened is this grape got made it here. It spent a little more time in our California sunshine and became a true representation of California. And it is planted all over the land, from San Diego to Rancho Cucamonga to Lodi to Sonoma County to the mountains of the foothills, Sierra foothills to Mendocino County. I mean, you just cannot name a part of California that doesn't have a Zinfandel example. And that's one of the reasons why I really love this grape variety, because there's different iterations and different nuances that each place passes on. And I think that's really unique. It is also part of the reason that Zinfandel can be a little confusing, because people don't necessarily know what type of Zinfandel they're going to get. And so tonight we're going to taste through a pretty large swath of examples, and some of them you're going to love, and some of them you're going to like a little bit less, maybe, or a little bit more. But that's what wine is all about, is finding some of the things you like. So let's get started with wine number one. This is a wine I used to sell in the 1990s. It's called Monte Volpe. I think it's had a few different iterations as far as the owners and maybe the sourcing, etc. But the brand Monte Volpe, this is the Primo Rosso Lot 17 from Mendocino County. This is a multi-vintage wine. We'll talk about why that makes a lot of sense for this wine in just a second. This is wine number one in our scale. And let me take you through the show. So Mendocino County is a northern California appellation, just in the northern part of the North Coast, just north of Napa Valley, north of Sonoma County. And really, most of the appellation here in Mendocino is planted to grapes like Zinfandel. Really classic old California grape growing area, responsible for some really important wines. The Graziano family, now operated by Greg and Alexandra Graziano, There's the next generation, but their family dates back to the 1900s. They've got 30 acres of grapes, and um, yeah, they've definitely got some heritage. Here's another reason to love Zinfandel. They look like soldiers out in the vineyards. And a vineyard like this, look at that, there's probably different generations, different ideas. Look at those vines in the back there, those small, untrained, untrellised vines. Um, they're basically like little bushes. There's not even a wire or anything like that. And later on, we said, maybe we don't need to be that close to the ground. We started to change the height of the vine, and that's all through training. And so there's different ideas at work in this vineyard here, probably much different time zones and a lot of different information in each of the vines that are planted here. Now, this wine is a Zinfandel-based blend, but it is a very traditional Zinfandel, meaning we can call it Zinfandel if it's mostly Zinfandel. And in fact, there are some old vine sites where we don't even know what the grapes are. The way they used to plant the vineyard is they would like alternate. Okay, one white grape, one red grape, one Zinfandel, one Carignan, one Petite Syrah, one Alicante Boucher. There, there were some different things. They called it a field blend. And the whole idea was that, in a tough year, some of these types of grapes would do better than others. And so they'd always have a crop. And you pick them all together. And a lot of the times, the wine used to be called all blacks because it was just the all black grape varieties like Petite and Zinfandel, very dark, very thick skins. And in California, with all the heat and everything, it takes on some really fun, rich, delicious character. Here's a little breakdown of those grape varieties. Yeah, so there's even wines still today that call their wine all blacks. This is kind of what they're talking about, this little lineup right here, because they just don't even know what's in the vineyard. But you could get away with an old vine site and just calling it Zinfandel, because Zinfandel probably is like 51% of the vineyard. So Zinfandel kind of plays a little bit in the gray area on that. But a lot of Zinfandels, especially the old vine stuff, are field blends, and this is certainly the style of this particular wine. Now let's taste it. I didn't want to show you that price until you tasted it. Damn it, I didn't do a good job. Because how could a $10 bottle of wine be any good at all? Well, taste it and you tell me. You know, I think it's 12 bucks. So yeah, let's taste it and see what you think. Spicy, lots of like black pepper, throws a little bit of alcohol. You can smell that. Some plum skin, a little bit of reduction. It is in a screw cap bottle, but that almost helps make sure that it's safe. Reduction is just didn't have a lot of oxygen in its life, so it's got just a little bit of a reduced nose. I kind of think it works actually making this wine even a little bit better because this is it is a wine that fights on many levels to be fresh and be tasty. There's some thought processes here about making this bottle of wine affordable that you really want it to show well because people that buy an $11 bottle of wine, they're not going to lay this down in the cellar for 5 years. They want it to drink really good right now. So you put it in the bottle and you almost freeze it into place by putting a screw cap on it because it's not going to get any more oxygen and trap it in there. And now some corks, some Stelvin closures are better than others, and there is a little bit more technology in some of those. But literally, this wine was, they put it in there, they put that screw cap on there saying, okay, this wine's ready to go. no matter if you're going to drink it today or 10 months from now, it's going to be about the same. The quality marks that we're going to see tonight, we're going to feel a lot of that richness, that the density, the fleshiness, concentration, but don't mistake that for sweetness. Um, because sometimes sweetness helps plump things up a little bit. This wine is dry and it's got some ripe features in the nose, a little bit of alcohol. But if I were in a economic pinch and I wanted something affordable and good with my barbecue, my steak, I think this is a good representation at the price point. It's authentic, and I think it does a pretty good job. Any questions about our Primo Rosso?
What year is it?
So it is a multi-vintage blend, and by keeping that uh, as they don't have to go around and be super sensitive about what's on the shelf already, um, uh, changing labels, artwork. They can even make multiple releases in a year. So that's why it says lot 17. Um, but that may be something they'll change from year to year. But the vintage it's going to and sometimes we call these um, a multi-vintage type of wines. We'll do it sometimes in a way where we'll take 20% or 30% of the total wine supply and replace it with a new vintage. And that's done in a lot of wines like sherries and multi-vintage ports, and that type of winemaking is done all the time. I'm not so sure this is done in that style or for that reason, but um, uh, there is definitely an ability here to source fruit if you needed to, go out in the spot market and make some more. And at this price point, believe me, that's what a lot of wineries do. If you got a grocery store placement, if you're in the store and you're in a lot of marketplaces, you need to keep that wine in stock. The worst possible thing that can happen to you is you run out of stock, then you got to start all over again. And so being able to make wine on the spot and keep your price, and make something that's kind of a commodity is really what you're doing here. And so this gives them some flexibility. If I knew more about what the base was on this vintage, I would tell you a little bit about that, but I don't. I just got this wine in the store this week. I had it for months, and coming up to this event, it's been selling pretty well, and we needed another hit. I want to tell you that this one tastes a little greener, a little like this was just bottled. And that's also part of it. They can bottle it to order as well. They don't need to have 200,000 bottles of it waiting in the warehouse. They can bottle it as the orders come in. So that maybe what we're dealing with here. It seems a little bit firmer than I remember it. We're going to move into wine number two. Classic, Turley. Now, we're tasting Juvenile here in number two. Turley's came on the scenes in the early 1990s, and by the late 90s, they practically owned the Zinfandel market. I bet in today's, Zinfandel market over $20 a bottle, they've got to be a sizable percentage of the marketplace, and they do a great job. They've got multiple facilities. Maybe you visited the facility in Paso. They also have another one up in Napa, and I think they have a third where they make these California origined wines because they work with lots of different sites between Paso, Sonoma, Napa, and areas in between. And their winemaker, Pasalacqua, is fantastic. I didn't mean to ignore the comments, the multiple comments in the chat room, and I would love to get you in there and chat as much as possible. I am a little slower today than maybe normal. Been up since 6 a.m. and I just drove, I don't know, 100 miles to get here today. So feeling a little road worry, but maybe a little bit of wine is all I need to get the dust, the cobwebs off. Let's see how it goes. So we're talking about Turley and Juvenile. So we're talking about what they would consider younger vines, but they're not young necessarily like babies. They're just not old vines. And some of these are maybe old vines that they did rip out and replant, so they can't put them in the old vine wine. Or maybe they're just not old enough to be considered old vines. But they themselves own about 70, is it 75 acres? Yeah, 75 acres. Um, check out that number that they make 47 wines. And I'm going to bet that 37 of them are Zinfandel. So lots of different sites. And they make some great Petit Syrah and some other little things. They make a white Zinfandel that they're trying to get fancy with white Zinfandel, even a really nice dry rosé Zinfandel. That's pretty interesting. And you can find those at the tasting room. Also, they've got really great vineyard practices. They're certified organic, and they're kind of like the vine whisperers of Zinfandel. When you're working with as many vines as they are, they know what to do, where to do it, how to do it, and they have a lot of expertise. I love this picture. I love this site that's down in front of us here. Also, if you can see, like from the bird's eye, see how a few of these rows where they're missing some vines because things do happen, they can get struck by lightning, eaten by birds. More likely, what it is probably some localized virus issue, or maybe it's some sort of insect infestation that triggered an early death, or maybe it's just the site itself. Look down here at the bottom of the hill. I imagine all the water that settles down here, and it's probably a lot harder to be a vine down here in the bottom of the hill than it is up at the top. Can you see my little marker there? Is that even showing up on your screen? I'll just highlight some of these rows where the vines are missing and stuff. So that's just a kind of the way Zinfandel and all grapes kind of are. But especially when you're talking about the difference between old vines and young vines. Let me get you back in there. Didn't mean to boot us out. Let's go back in. All right. Next slide. So this is what they would call old vine or 100% Zinfandel because they know what the grapes are in the younger vines and the younger vineyards. It's these old vines that they just don't even have any records of what was planted or where. And it would take a good amount of research and a good amount of time because there's several thousand vines in an acre. And so that would just not be much productive work unless you got an intern on it from UC Davis who's trying to become some sort of a amplographer. That's what they call these people that read the grape leaves and say, "Oh, that's a Petit Manseng, and that's a Cabernet Sauvignon." You can look at the leaf, and some people are good enough at it that they can tell you what the species is just by looking at the leaf. I think that's amazing. So, as we'll learn today, Zinfandel, one of the challenges for Zin is that if it's planted in a spot with high vigor, the vine really wants to grow and wants to multiply, and you can grow a lot of Zinfandel. It can be a very abundant crop, very, very big clusters on the valley floors. You could have clusters that are a foot and a half long. Like they might not have that many berries, but the berry size is going to be pretty big. Lots of juice to a thin amount of skin. Those are fun to eat. Those aren't the kind of grapes that we necessarily make the best wines from. Although I will say firsthand that I bought some fruit, some Zinfandel off of Black Sears, and I brought it to my buddy, and he looked at it and he goes, "How much did you pay for this stuff?" And he wasn't even that nice about it. And it didn't look like it was going to make anything too great. Well, sometimes looks can deceive you. It was great. It was great. But it was large yielding, huge berries, and lots of like they were estimating that was the 2012 vintage. They were estimating that they might have gotten 3 to 5 tons per acre. So when I agreed to buy the acre that I bought, and it came in at 9 tons for 1 acre. That was crazy. But that's the kind of things that can happen with Zinfandel. Ken, thank you for doing the job, tasting the wine. He's getting some cherries, hints of black olive, big and ripe fruit over tannin, a lovely finish. Love that. Good work. Here's Larry Turley. His sister is Helen Turley. They Helen was in the earliest days of Turley Winery involved, but she went on to do great things of her own, and she has not been involved in this product for since the early 90s. Larry is the owner, his family, uh, daughter, and others are working in the winery, and Larry and his wife, Suzanne, owns a distributor in the state of California, a very successful one called Chambers and Chambers. That's a cool site. Little look at how, we've got some different row orientation, probably some different types of maybe there's some Sauv Blanc there, trellis at the very bottom. Some old vines in, low to the ground, next to the trees. Yeah, I got some fun stuff to comment about. Sometimes Zinfandel started off as a primary crop, and as certain grapes like Merlot got popular, maybe some Cab, people started to plant some Cab. Zinfandel tended to get kind of put in the kind of the weird corners or little gardens and stuff because the family still loved to have some Zin. Um, this is 27.95. It's wine number two. What I love about this wine is it just came in about a month ago. It's still pretty green, and that will soften. Um, I'd say it's about 5, 6 months away. It's pretty dry. It's got some a little bit of assertiveness, but this is a phenomenal 23 vintage. And Turley does this. They kind of get the wine out there into the market. because they know that a wine made at around $30 is going to be drank pretty quickly. They want this wine to come around pretty quickly. Um, but 23 was a really good vintage, and this wine already is fun, but has some a little bit of astringency from it being a little slightly on that green side, a little coming at you soon type of a thing. But this is really where you want to be able to buy this wine because when it's good, it's gone. I mean, it's gone. I get 5 cases of this wine a year, and last year and the year before and the year before that, the Wine Spectator puts a wine like this in the top 100. Oh, some big article comes out, and bam, it is eradicated. So the fact that I have any of it right now is great, and that's why we put it in this show because I had planned on showing the old vines from Turley. Well, don't be disappointed because I did show the old vines. I sent it to you as a bonus, a little bonus jar. Let's taste that now, and you can taste the 22 old vines. Now, 23, incredible vintage. 21, incredible vintage. 22, much more difficult, really difficult. And I think there are some great 22s. And, but when I compare them, a great 22 is going to be a nice 21 or a nice 23. It's not going to be a great 23. 23 and 21 are going to be capable of incredible outcomes. 22, you're just happy if your wine turned out pretty good. It was a strange year where the acids were super high and the sugars started getting super high. So you had high acid and high sugar. And that really made the winemakers have to work a little harder and make some good wine. It wasn't oh, I let the vineyard do it. No, you had to take control. The red light was on the dashboard and you took it out of autopilot and you put on the winemaker shoes and you became more in charge. Now, old vines, they are definitely a named set of old vines. I think on the Turley website, there might even show you like all the vineyard compositions that come into the old vine name. But they have quite a few old vines. They do tend to try to say that this is Zinfandel and this isn't, and this is some other stuff, but they know in some of their vineyards, we got about 5%. And they just kind of say 5% of all these. Mataro, Alicante Boucher, Petit Syrah, Grenache, and Cinsault. Totally the field blend thing. These vines are anywhere from 50 to 130 years old. Now, we used to think of old vines being things that were planted prior to Prohibition, but now the thought is that 50 is that magic number, 50 years old. A vine goes from being, you know, kind of dumb and stupid when it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sometimes a big, beautiful grapevine when it's 5 years old will give you almost nothing as far as fruit. After, a couple more years, the fruit bearing years start to come. Between 10 and 20 years, you start really getting some decent rewards. 20 is when things really start to get interesting, and 30 that's like the prime of its life. Every year after that, it's just kind of a bonus, and some sites allow for the vineyard to get quite old, and some sites do not. Just happens. So my designer broke out the Zinfandel fruit again, just to give you some of those buzzwords. A little bit repetitive today because we're drinking all Zinfandel. 92 points here. So that's a pretty good score for a 22 and a wine of this price point. Nose is much more evolved than 23 at this point. A year older. You get that really beautiful big price. Price is coming, George. Here it comes. The young vines, I'm going to say, 6 months. You'll really thank me for getting the juvenile in about 6 months. The old vines is already showing. It's 33.95. It's a few more bucks, but I did get a second crack at it. That's another thing about tougher vintages. Some people will be like, "Oh, it's the 22. I heard that's tough. I'm not even going to try to sell it." So I went back in and got some more because I could. And as you get a little bit older in this business, you know what people want, and being able to get some old vines is nice. I'm going to probably have the 22 and the 23 old vines at some point in the store. Getting some good chat activity. I hope you really loved where, yeah, George, this is that Turley is such a good price. I'm going to tell you right now, they know their business. They know, you know, a lot of their sites for the old vines, they're some of them are owned, but a lot of them are purchased fruit, and they're taking care of, some small lots from some families, and they're just very happy to be involved with the Turleys and knowing it's going into a good wine. But price point, once Zinfandel gets over 35, 40 bucks, the sales really slow down. It's I mean, in fact, you could say that same thing about $9. $9 is a great price point, but if you're going to be over 9, you might as well be 19. And then if you're at 19, you might as well be 25, or over 19, you might as well be 25. There's no middle ground. And people just buy kind of in their head, they're going to be very loyal to a price number. Unfortunately for Zinfandel, a lot of Zinfandels are pegged into a price corner, and they're not able to explore really the fine wine realm. And so they're looking for ways to keep the yields up, keep keep the money coming in, because costs are going up, and land costs, labor costs, all that really impacts the price of the wine. But we're talking about some pretty, you know, brands that are to scale and sizable. And this next brand couldn't be a better segue. Martinelli. This is one of the champion families of Zinfandel. When you drive around and you look at the great vineyards of Zinfandel and you ask the people that own those vineyards, "Oh, what type of Zinfandel do you have?" They're probably going to say Martinelli clone. Martinelli clone. Why? Because Martinellis have some of the best vineyards in Zinfandel, and everybody wants to propagate their vineyard from a great, healthy vineyard from the very best vines called Mezzo Selection. You go in, you look at the vineyard, you're like, look at that vine right there. That's the most beautiful vine. Let's take some cuttings from that and let's plant a vineyard based on that, selection of the vineyard, and that high selection is mostly from Martinelli vineyards. Talking about Russian River, Sonoma Valley, Guerneville, Sebastopol, Santa Rosa, all the way up there along that river area. You can see the sites where they're at, Healdsburg. Old school brand from the 1880s. There used to be a joke, any winery with an I uh, at the end of their name, whether it was Mondavi, Martinelli, Pagani, Peperoncelli, they were the Zinfandel families. Then there was a time when all the top Zinfandels had an R. It was Raffinelli, Ridge, Ravenswood. It was kind of a fun thing. I preferred the last 10 years. A lot of the best Zinfandels had a B in the front. I'll talk about that later. Beautiful shot there. That's like that's amazing. They it's like a golf course, they put it in the planted the vines just in the right spots, left the vines out of the crevices. 100% Zinfandel. The Martinellis are pretty unashamedly the same thought process when it comes to Zinfandel. I think their winemaking style is very classic and really they're not afraid of alcohol. They will go for it. They'll go for full ripeness, full flavor, and some of their wines are incredibly concentrated and can get quite expensive. This wine is quite the deal at 35 bucks. Russian River Martinelli Zinfandel. That nose, I love this nose. That nose is just like smelling a bowl of plum skins. Wow, that is drinking great. Pretty hot. That's got some alcohol. What is the alcohol? Anyone want to guess? Don't be shy. 16.3. It's almost port. Ooh. But that's what I was telling you. This is a 2022. They had to in order to get that plushness, they had to let it ripen. And that thing was already kicking like 28 degrees bricks with acid that was like, don't pick me yet. You're like, holy smokes, how sweet is this fruit going to get? So it was a vintage that gave us this incredible, like intoxicating ripeness, but there's yeah, 16.3. They didn't de-alk this wine. Maybe some producers did. This Saturday, I have a class I teach every year a couple of times called Wine Business 101. If you ever thought about getting in the wine business, maybe you want to be an importer, maybe you want to own a wine star, wine bar, wine storage company, or something I always recommend is people to think about getting into the wine industry as a supplier, supplying things like labels, bottles, corks, logistics. These are great jobs, and you get to work with a lot of cool people. And we talk about that and the wine world, what's happening. We're going to have some conversations this weekend about tariffs, all kinds of stuff. It's called Wine Business 101. I'm now teaching it where you can be involved in the class on Zoom or live. We're going to do both formats this weekend. So live it's in downtown LA, and at Zoom it's at the exact same time. Welcome to join us. Check it out and look at learnaboutwine.com to see more about that program. Even if you're just wanting to collect information All right. We're moving on to, I guess it's wine 5.5. Hope you guys enjoyed the Martinelli and Hartford Court is up next. These guys own some serious old vine sites. When they got started, they went out and they went hunting for old vine Russian River Valley sites. Again, they're right in there in that beautiful part of Sonoma County. Something's going on here. What happened? That's the same one. That says Martinelli on the barn, but this is the right slide. Founded in 1993, Don and Jennifer Hartford. They got a 6-acre vineyard. Their current winemaker, his name is Tian Lorden. There is the Hartford facility today. That picture was for the last winery. Um, they have really done some amazing stuff. They make some great Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Zinfandel. They make a number of Zinfandels, and if you look closely at this slide, you'll see a lot of the names of the different single vineyard sites. This is more of an aggregate wine, so they're blending this from these different single vineyard sites. This is the Old Vine Cuvée that we're tasting, and it's from 2021. Some of those same typical flavor profiles that we've been talking about before. Jammy, smoky, exotic. Crisp cherry skins. Let's see how my review's holding up. I reviewed this about 2 years ago. I took a pretty good position on this wine. I'm down to just a few bottles now, but I wanted to see how this wine is doing. 15.5 alcohol, not shy. I gave it 13.5 on color. It's beautiful. The aroma, 22.5. The body, we're going to taste it here. And overall, 32.5. That equaled 91 points. That's really dry. Finish has the finish kind of comes up behind it a little bit. Not as in love with that finish as I used to be. Love the nose, love the color, love the smell, the mouthfeel. It's all there. But the wine to me is dry and a little almost bitter on the finish. At least today it is. And I'd probably be a little lower on the score. Do love that nose though. $38.95 is where we're at. Yeah, I bought like 60 bottles of this back in 21. I tasted it from barrel. I went up to make my wine up in wine country and was invited to the winery and did some different barrel stuff. I wanted to support. And so yeah, I'm down to we might not even have 9 left. I'm not sure. All right, let's move into Beekeeper 2018 Montecillo. Ooh. Montecillo is a spectacular vineyard in Sonoma Valley. It's actually quite high in elevation. It was planted by Mike Lee. This is a site you can. This is actually in rock pile under a tree, but let me. There we go. No, that's rock pile too. Let me see where the Montecillo picture is. I'll let you know. But this has been dry farmed since 2009. And check my girl here, make sure she's correct. Sounds about right. Because we don't have any Petit Syrah in this vineyard, Montecillo, 1,500 feet on what's called the Sonoma Valley, but it's almost at the county line with Napa Valley, in a part of the Sonoma Valley that's really famous for Cabernet. In fact, Montecillo Cabernet is the Cabernet that Kenwood Vineyards uses for the Artist Series Cabernet. But up around the house where Mike Lee, the owner of Kenwood, used to live, he had 4 acres of Zinfandel for his own private wine there. Mike Lee passed away, and allowed my buddy Clay Mortson and he gave it to he and I to be able to make and grow my Beekeeper brand. Now, when he say he gave it to me, it means that he let me buy it. I paid good money for this fruit, but it was highly desired, Zinfandel, because it was planted back in the 1970s. So getting some good age on it. It was at elevation. It was dry farmed and really beautiful stuff. Martinelli clone, um, and a really just breathtaking site. That's me back in the day. 2018 Zinfandel. This is from the Wine Advocate. Comes from a single vineyard co-planted with a small percentage Petit Syrah. That is true. We don't know which plants were the Petit and which were the Zin. We pick it all together. So we say it's about 98 Zin and 2 Petit Syrah. But we're guessing. It could be a few points off left or right. 4 acres gave us enough juice to make a little bit more than 190 cases. I sometimes took a barrel or two of this wine and blended it into my Hidden Hillside Reserve. See quite a few chats, and I'm sorry to be ignoring those, but I hope you guys are enjoying your conversation here. Where are we at? Ken, you liked the Martinelli with that 16.3. Simply delicious, he said. Amy, you loved it too. Fantastic. I agree. Yeah, the nose doesn't feel hot because there's so much there in the nose that it wears the alcohol instead of the alcohol wearing the nose. George was guessing 18 and 19% on the alcohol. That would be a little crazy. Lots of comments back on that Martinelli. Stephanie, I told Mike it reminds me of port. Stephanie, how many people you got tonight with you? You got a whole table full of people in there, right?
We just have 3 tonight.
3. Well, thanks very much. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. very unfortunately, we think our Beekeeper is corked, which is sad. But I have lots of bottles. I was looking in my thing, so I'm going to pull out a different bottle for Mike to try it.
That's not cool.
It happens.
Did you have any favorites earlier in the lineup?
I really enjoyed the Hartford. The
Cool.
Hartford, delicious, and we enjoyed the bonus wine.
The bonus was good.
Awesome.
And I mean, they were all good, right? But yeah, those were our standouts so far.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but now that ours, I think was corked also, something wasn't right about it.
Did you have a bottle?
No,
Then it's not corked.
okay, well, then I'll shut up.
Yeah. Did you think your Beekeeper was corked?
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was more the nose that put me off. It wasn't really the taste. Taste was
Well, if
okay.
it's corked, it smells like wet cardboard.
It smells like cat urine.
Cat urine. Well, that's not fun.
No,
I said wet socks. Kind of similar.
Yeah.
right,
But
well,
that was a specific bottle.
Okay. Yeah, because you guys bought a bottle. And I tasted all the jars that went out. This is the way this wine is supposed to be tasting. And I understand some off aromas once in a while. Mine is tasting exactly the way I expect it to be, and which is dark and pure fruited. I mean, that thing is as dark as wine can get. We put 100% uh, French oak on these wines. This particular vintage 2018 got a good amount of new wood. We were ramping up our wood quality and using some really, really top quality stuff, type of barrels that Opus One and other top producers would be, Harlan's of the world and stuff like that. We're going for. So we didn't make a lot of wine, about 180 cases, but we did pretty well. We stopped making wine after 2018 because of, here we are. I didn't even start to sell the 18 until 2022, 2023. Because our wines take 5 years in the bottle to come around. But with the pandemic, with the fires, and mostly the pandemic, I knew that the restaurant industry would be a shambles, and we had our business plan was completely around restaurant distribution. We had 225 restaurants that had our wine. 25 of them were Michelin 1 or 2 star restaurants, and really was part of the pleasure of the business was to get Zinfandel into top quality spots and to see how it did. Wine like this was poured at En Naka for years with the A5 Wagyu course.
Ian,
Mm-hmm.
I pulled one of our bottles of the same Beekeeper out. And so Mike, because he really wanted to try it and he loves it. As always. I told him you have to try it. So
Well,
very good.
cork bottles can definitely happen.
Yep,
But
absolutely. Absolutely. No, we're good. I wanted to make sure he tried it.
1 in 100 with mine, because our cork is really, really good quality stuff. But yeah, it doesn't happen very often, thank God. As I taste the wine today, you can see this wine's still a baby. 2018, it's 7 years old. It's not relenting at all. It's firm, very dry. I make it in what's called a claret style, which is meant for aging. And, this is part of the journey. I think, I'll be tasting and showing this wine for several years to come. And I want people to be able to know how, you know, top quality efforts can show. When we get to some other types of Zinfandel, we're going to see some different approaches, and there's different reasons why Zinfandel can be a little riper, a little richer, a little sweeter sometimes, because those wines they need to sell them. These are tannic wines, lots of tannin, and I wanted to wear the tannin like a badge of honor. The Cabernet wears that. Barolo wears that. I like the fact that when my wine is blind tasted by master somms and others, they sometimes say maybe Barolo, maybe Northern Rhone, and I love that. I love that because they don't have like who is making big, bold, dry, long aging Zinfandel that isn't candy. The candy part comes around because they want to soften those tannins and make the wine juicy and easy to love earlier, which is why that style even exists. And Zinfandel, make people like it. I mean, it is very likable. So I'm going to move from talking about my own wine to, oh, there's the picture. That's the money shot. That is the Montecillo Vineyard. That's what it looks like. Now, those are the cab vines, by the way, because I couldn't get back behind the Zinfandel vine. You have to go into the house to be behind the Zinfandel. But you're looking out over the cab. 1,500 feet is where the aversion line is. That's the fog only goes up to about 1,500 feet. And so the vines are right at or just above the fog over the Sonoma Valley. And if you go up the road from here, just maybe a mile more, you're in Mount Veeder, Napa Valley. We're at 82.95, and you can use your discount on this wine if you would like to grab some bottles. We have several vintages on our website now. We have um, eliminated most of the old inventory. I have a little bit in my private cellar, but just a little bit on the website, and this 2018 and the Reserve 18 we have quite a bit of. Last wine of the night. And there's a reason we showed you this one last. You're going to see why. It's beautifully done. This is Gregory Graham. This is from Red Hills, Lake County. This is the former winemaker of Rombauer. And this is the Crimson Hill Vineyard in Lake County. It's a really beautiful site. 1992 is when he started to work with the spot. His winery became a thing in 2006 after being at and really building the Rombauer brand. He brought this type of winemaking style to Chardonnay, to the Rombauer house of wines. And so you taste this Zin, love it or not. This is a very successful wine producer with a really distinctively different take on Zinfandel. $26.95. Great color. Pretty ripe. Let me see what that alcohol gets to. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to Look at the alcohol. We've put some stickers on the bottle and it covered the alcohol. I'm going to guess it's in the high 15s. It's ripped off the back of the label. Can't tell. It's not on the front, right? It is on the front. 14.9 it says. All right, so he gets to say 14.9. It's in the 15s. Mm. You could have this with some chocolate. You could have this with some barbecue for sure. Notice how the acids are so much softer. Very ripe. Not pruny though. I like that about this wine a lot. I think he keeps the fruit really sharp here, really good. And I don't like it raisiny, but there's a good amount of sweetness still here. And this is really lifting this wine and making it really fun. I think this is a great, Zinfandel ambassador to bring people into Zinfandel. If you don't like sweeter styles of red, then this may not be your choice. But I think this is kind of like the direction that a lot of people have gone. Camus Cabernet has a similar sweet profile and it's winning people over. So, there's different things for different people, and no one's one wine is ever going to make everybody happy. It's just the way the wine world works, and that is why I love the variety of wines. I wouldn't want to drink the same wine every day. It would be painful. And having a selection and wide number of styles and grape varieties, vintages, it's just what the pleasure is of drinking wine. Alice, a Zin dessert wine, absolutely. My chocolate chip cookies might go good with this one. I sent a number of our members a couple of cookies from the latest batch. Hope you enjoy those. Coming up next week, pretty cool session, gang. I've got Santa Barbara and I'm interviewing a number of winemakers for next week. You're going to learn a lot. The wine list is outstanding, and I'm going to be really, really stoked to present next week's Santa Barbara tasting. 2 weeks from now, the best of Spain and some really top offerings there. Then great Italian whites. I'm figuring middle of June, be warming up about that time. Man, the Italian white selection I've put together for you is unbelievable. Um, and then we'll do some collectible cabs, get some big cabs out there, as we have quite a few of them in the store, and I want to make sure you've seen a few new ones. And we have been publishing Zooms out. We're publishing Zooms right now into August. So you'll see those start to come alive. We might not have them all detailed out yet, but you can see the topicality and plan to be with us. We do these Zooms at the cost of production and keep you guys entertained, hopefully involved in our store. We do provide Los Angeles residents with complimentary shipping. And I'll tell you now, because it's hard to communicate it, that the Zoom kit can come with your wine order, but you have to let the wine order come with the Zoom kit. So that means that we bottle the Zooms on Mondays and we deliver on Tuesdays. So if you have a bottle order ready to go and your Zoom can come with it in LA only, because if I try to ship your kit with UPS, I have to charge you a separate transaction because I cannot slip the Zoom kit in with the bottle. If it breaks, I lose because UPS will not insure the packing. So that's why I have to do it that way. It's a benefit for LA. Just so you know, too, I only charge 20 bucks to ship in the state of California. It costs me closer to 30, just so you know. I don't care if you live down the street. It's $14 now for a signature, that just to get started. So the business plan's being a little touchy, but you're going to see a little bit more $35 Zooms than $29 Zooms going forward because I gotta cover some of that shipping cost and keep that $20 price point there. But that's where it's all going, and I'm just being real honest about it.
Hey, Ian, can I ask you a question? I'm going to be out of town next week, but I still really want to do the Zoom. So I have a friend that's doing them. She's not able to do it on Wednesday, so she still gets a kit in Nebraska, like in Lincoln with me. But
Amazing.
then she ends up watching later. But
Yeah.
so I was going to have my kit shipped to her house just so that I can still do it. How does that work with if she gets the 2 kit? Would we still pay the 45 or would it be 90 to ship 2 kits
Wouldn't-
to her
Yeah,
house?
you'll save some shipping dollars.
Okay.
It might be a little bit more because of weight. Then it might be, 45 is what we say it might cost, but
Yeah,
we then let you know what the actual cost is and maybe send a slight adjustment, but it'll save you probably 35 bucks.
cool. Okay, sweet.
And you get a
Yeah,
little
we'll be
discount on
seeing
it
that coming.
too. Yeah, and where are you going?
Uh, uh, my work is doing a leadership retreat that is like super last minute and very unplanned. But we're apparently going down to Branson. So
Okay. So getting the kit to you there will be probably problematic. So,
yeah, well, and we leave Wednesday morning, and so it gets shipped Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, I'll get it on Friday when I get back. So
all right. All right. Cool.
thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. We love having Nebraska in the house. That's so cool. George, good to see you, sir. Dave Chapman, thanks so much. Your wife's amazing. Kent,
Yes.
great to have you in the house, buddy.
Quick question. Did you
Yeah.
receive that email I sent you about just at your leisure for a couple of questions?
It's in my leisure pile.
Great. Thank you.
It will be responded to. Just came off of, I mean, thank God we had a great month, but maybe just a little too much going on. It was almost destructive. We got so busy. So
Oh,
it's been pretty tough. Been tough to keep up. But we definitely will catch our breath. I was trying to do it all weekend. I worked all weekend to try to catch up, but didn't quite get there.
thank you.
My pleasure, guys. I think there's still some chats that I haven't said a couple things to, but Josh and Doris, thank you. I'm glad you guys could join us. Thanks so much. Where are you guys zooming from?
We live in Montrose, so close to LA,
Right.
right down the street. It was really fun. I had a really great time.
Is this your first time?
No, it's been years since we've done it. I've been getting your emails and I love Zinfandel and I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this one. It's been a while. It's been like since COVID times, I think, since I've done one.
Awesome.
Yeah, you really helped us out during COVID. Thank you.
Yes, you did. Appreciate you.
So glad that we could do it. It was necessary, but also fun, and it worked out great for everybody, and I'm excited to still be here.
Yeah, that beekeeper was really special. Thank you.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Amy, always wonderful to see your smiling face. Thank you so much. Trish, how's it going with you guys?
We're doing great. We're doing
Awesome.
great. We enjoyed your course, and we enjoyed the wines, except for the beekeeper, which was disappointing. I had just heard about Beekeeper from a friend of mine who mentioned it.
Yeah.
And so, but for some reason, the nose, it wasn't the taste, it was the nose was so off-putting that I couldn't drink it. We both felt the same way about it.
All right.
A funky.
Sorry about that, but I can't explain that, but give it another try another time and see if the cat pee comes back, because that's not part of my nose.
We'll do that. We'll do that. Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, I hope you have a great night. I think my Dodgers lost again today, but we're doing pretty damn good. So I don't even have a Dodger hat. That's how weird today was. But but the Dodgers are traveling across the country playing some tough teams, and they're still in first place. Got a little bit of a lead, in fact. Shohei has now hit 20 home runs. He's leading Major League Baseball. Our catcher's hitting 325. Our first baseman's hitting close to 400. We got some health coming back, and our pitching is starting to come back. Clayton Kershaw pitched 5 really good innings today. That's good news. So lots to be happy about in Dodger land. We gave up 5 runs in the 8th inning though today, and that's why we lost. So tough result, but some good news along the way. Hope you don't mind me sprinkling in a little bit of joy. If I don't have baseball on a daily basis, I go through like withdrawals. I pay a lot of attention to the Giants. I pay a lot of attention to the Padres. Luckily, the Padres, I'm paying attention to them falling apart, but the Giants are doing great, and they are.
Mr. Posey.
That guy, man, come on! He was a world-class player, Hall of Famer, caliber. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame yet, but he should be.
Yeah, he should be. But he's fixed the team. Ian, can I just tell you that I thank you very much for starting tonight with the Graziano. That was so interesting to start with. I've been to the tasting room. It was an accident that I was there. It's so like old California. You know what I
Yeah.
really is. It's like the stuff I used to drink when I was in college. And or I go up to my folks lived up near Placerville, and there was a place called D'Agostini, with the corkstop cruise with the old Zinfandel and so on.
Yep.
Great stuff. Really good. Should be in every, pizza restaurant and old spaghetti factory, if you know what I mean. It was great.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that is that.
Classic.
Zinfandel, there's a lot of Zinfandel that sells under 12, 13 bucks a bottle. And if it all tasted as good as that one, we'd be in a much better spot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I am a judge at the LA County Fair, and we taste a couple hundred Zinfandels, and a lot, I've seen price points as low as like $8, $9. Man, there's some stuff that is really tough. Doesn't have the cat pee nose, but it's bad.
It's close. Yeah. That was really good. Yeah, I think that our host there was the old initial winemaker at Chalk Hill or something like that. He was a really interesting guy, little guy with a goatee, an older guy with a goatee, and he served us. I was there with family. There were 6 of us, and I think he served us like 18 wines or something like that. Very old, traditional California experience. And I will say, I'm really glad I still have a few bottles of Beekeeper in my cellar. I thought the Beekeeper was superb. They were all good, except for the last one, not to my taste. I had to have a cookie to kill the taste, but that's just me.
A little bit of sweetness, a little
Yeah.
bit of sweetness.
Yeah, I've never been a Rombauer fan,
Yeah.
my view, but there you go. Anyway, thank you.
Thomas, always great to have you, man.
Yeah.
George, good to see you too, sir. Hope you're doing
It
well.
was good to be on board.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, and whenever you do a Zinfandel, I'll always be there. It's
Awesome.
my first grape that I fell in love with. You know, it's well, I can't tell how old I was when I started drinking that. So I was getting in trouble, but
No problem.
absolutely love Zinfandel. This was a great portfolio of Zinfandels. It went the whole gamut of everything I've ever tasted in Zinfandel in my life. So
Awesome.
I do love the Beekeeper. I will be ordering some more. I do have to talk to my financial advisor.
I hear you. And me too. It almost bankrupted me. I love making the wine, but they say, you know, how do you make a small fortune in the wine industry? You start with a large one. So I'm looking for a large one to get started again. Uh, my wife said that if I could find the right woman to marry that has a fortune, she would let me go. So I got permission already. Thank you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.